on this joyful day to our community Church Unitarian Universalist. I'm your worship associate, Amy Holcamp, and it is a joy to be with you both in person and virtually today. So who are we as a community church? We are a progressive, open-minded, and inclusive religious community. We welcome all who are on a spiritual search for truth and meaning. Ours is a faith in action as we do the work of social justice and elevate compassion in our quest to live ethically, recognizing the inherent worth and dignity of every being. So please look to your weekly email for announcements. If you're not receiving that email and would like to, please let us know, but we'd love to be in communication with you. So today we're so happy to welcome Godshall to the pulpit. Marianne has been a member of CCUU for 32 years, and she's very grateful to her dear deceased friend Nancy Neto for introducing her to Unitarian Universalism and to CCUU. Marianne was born in New Orleans and grew up in the Republic of Panama, so she's fully bilingual. In her career, Marianne was a chemist who had the privilege to travel all over the world giving presentations and workshops. She has about 100 scientific publications. Her latest publication is an article on sugar for the Kirk-Offner Encyclopedia of Chemical Technology, that was published in June of 2021. Marianne has always been interested in the intersection between science and religion, and is especially fond of the 7th UU principle about the interdependent web. This will be the 6th sermon she has given over the years at CCUU. Thank you so much for giving the sermon today, Marianne. So now let us start our service in earnest with our chalice lighting. It's Community Church's custom to light chalice invoking hope and eternal truth to our worship. Please join in singing "We Light This Flame." The words are in your order of service.
These are the opening words right here, the shortest word here. Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forward. And today we're going to be looking backwards at the history of Community Church and to understand it, to understand how we're going forward. So those are the opening words. Keep them in mind. Thank you.
And now we welcome our reading director, Cynthia Ramirez, with the Time for All Ages.
Good morning. So I'm going to do an oldie but goodie, but it is pertaining to what Marianne will be speaking. And I'm looking at it in terms of our church. The little engine that could. Chug, 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 puff, puff, puff. The little train ran along the tracks. She was a happy little train. Her cars were full of good things for boys and girls. There were all kinds of toy animals, giraffes with long necks, teddy bears with no necks, and even a baby elephant. There were all kinds of dolls. Dolls with blue eyes, yellow hair, dolls with brown eyes and brown hair, and the funniest town clown, toy clown you've ever seen. There were toy trucks, airplanes, and boats. There were picture books, games, and drums to play. The little train carried every kind of toy that boys and girls could want. But that was not all. The little train carried good things to eat too. Big round oranges, fat red apples, long yellow bananas, deny the cost to eat after dinner. The little train was taking all these good things to the other side of the mountain. How happy the boys and girls would be to see, said the little train. They will like the toys and good foods that I am bringing, but all at once the train came to a stop. She didn't move at all. Oh dear, said the little train. What can be the matter? She tried to start up again. She tried and tried, but her wheels just would not turn. We can help, said the toy animals. The clown and the animals climbed out of the cars. They tried to push the little train, but she did not move. We can help, too, said the dolls, and they got out and tried to push. Still, the little train did not move. The toys and dolls did not know what to do. Just then, a new shiny engine came thumping down the track. Maybe that engine can help us, cried the clown. He began to wave a red flag. The shiny new engine slowed down. This would be the UU way. The dolls and toys came out to him. Our engine is not working, they said. Please pull our train over the mountain. If you do, the boys and girls will not have any toys or good food. The shiny new engine was a bit friendly. You want me to pull you? He asked. That is not what I do. I carry people. They sit in the cars with a soft seat. They look out the windows. They eat in a nice dining car. They even sleep in a fine sleeping car. I pull the likes of you. I should say not. Off went the shiny new engine without another word. How sad all the toys and boys felt. And we said, good to you, bye-bye. Then the toy clown called out, here comes another engine, a big strong one. Maybe this engine will help us. Again, waved the flag. The big strong engine came to a stop. The boys and girls called out, please help us, big strong engine. Our train is not working, but you can call over the mountain. You can pull us over the mountain. You must help us, or the boys and girls will not have any toys to play with and good food to eat. But the big strong engine did not want to help. I do not pull toys, he said. I pull toys full of heavy logs. I pull big trucks. I have no time for the likes of you. And away puffed the strong engine without another word. I look at that as the city of New Orleans and FEMA, who said, I'm just kidding, you can't keep your church, you need to knock it down. By this time, the little train was no longer happy. The dolls and toys were ready to cry. But the clown cried out, look, another engine is coming. A little blue engine, a very little one. Maybe this engine would help us. The little blue engine, who I like to refer to as CCUU, congregation, was a happy engine. She saw the clown waving the red flag and stopped at once. What is the matter? She asked in a kind way. Oh, little blue engine, cried the dolls and toys. Will you pull us over the mountain? Our engine is not working. If you do not help, the boys and girls will have no toys and good food. Just over the mountain. Please, please, please help us. Oh my, said the little blue engine. I'm not very big, and I do not pull toys. Or trains, I'm sorry. I just work in the yards. I have never even been over the mountain. But we must get to there before the children wake up, said the toys and dolls. Please. The little blue engine looked at the dolls and toys. She could see that they were not happy. She thought about the children on the other side of the mountain. Without toys and good food, they would not be happy either. The little blue engine pulled up close. She took hold of the little train. The toy and dolls climbed back into their cars. At last, the little blue engine said, I think I can climb up the mountain. I think I can. I think I can. Then the little blue engine began to pull. She tugged and she pulled and she pulled and she tugged. Puff, puff, chug, chug, went the little engine. I think I can. I think I can, she said. Slowly and slowly, the train started to move. The dolls and the toys began to smile and clap. Puff, puff, chug, chug. Up the mountain went the little blue engine. And all the time she kept saying, I think I can. I think I can. I think I can. Up, up, up. The little engine climbed and climbed, and at last she reached the top of the mountain. Down below the city and the beautiful white church on the hill. Hooray, hooray, cried the dolls and the animals, and the boys and girls will be so happy, said the toy clown, all because you helped us, little blue engine. The little blue engine just smiled. But as she puffed down the mountain, the little blue engine seemed to say, I thought I could, I thought I could, I thought I could, I thought I could. Thank you. Put up the children, sing out the children for Arlie. Thank you.
The first reading is Community Means Strength by Starhawk. We are all longing to go home, to some place we have never been, a place half remembered and half envisioned. We can only catch glimpses from time to time, community. Somewhere there are people to whom we can speak with passion, without having words catched in our throats. Somewhere a circle of hands will open to receive us. Eyes will light up as we enter. Voices will celebrate us whenever we come into our own power. Community needs strength that joins our strength to do the work that needs to be done. Arms to hold us when we falter, a circle of healing, a circle of friends, someplace where we can be free.
Community Church Unitarian Universalist is a self-sustaining congregation. Members and friends' generosity help us to do the sacred work of bringing justice, spirituality, and compassion to the community and beyond. You can give in person, but you can also give online at CCUUNOLA.org/stewardship or by text at 504-370-2659. Just text GIVE. You can also send a check to CCUU at 6690 Fleur de Lis Drive, New Orleans, Louisiana, 70124. And thank you so much for your generosity. Now please stand as you're willing and able for hymn number 114, Forward Through the Ages. sorrows. If you're online, please write your joys and sorrows in the comments section to be read aloud. If you're here with us today and did not get to fill out a note card before the service, our greeters will have some for you now, or after our hymn, you can feel free to come up and to share with us then. Now you may remain seated for hymn number 347, Gather in Spirit. From Liz, keeping the congregation in my thoughts for the UU Church in Jackson due to the flooding. Anybody have any info? from Jim O'Neill. A joy and gratitude for the inspiration Serena Williams provides for so many young women of color. Is there anyone else who'd like to share anything? All right, well in that case we would like 2 more candles. One for the sorrows we can't get words to, and one for the joys that are just bubbling up to you to share. Know that whatever is happening in your lives, and what you're holding in your hearts, that we love you and are thinking about you. And now Marianne has our second reading.
So the second reading is called We're All in This Together, and it's lyrics from a high school musical. I finally figured out that all our dreams have no limitations. That's what it's all about. Everyone is special in their own way. We make each other strong. We're not the same. We're different in a good way. Together is where we belong. We're all in this together. And it shows. When we stand hand in hand, make our dreams come true, we arrive because we stop together. When I told a friend that part of the title of this message was the story of resilience, community, and commitment, they said that they hated the word resilience, that it had been so overused as to become meaningless. And that goes to some conservation. I could hear, already published this word. But, when a Unitarian is presented with a thorny theological issue, they go to Google, right, and ask for synonyms. And all the synonyms for resilient were really pretty terrific, like determined, flexible, strong, tough, rebounding, irrepressible. So I thought, that's a pretty good word, so we're going to keep it because we are a resilient group. And we have been since our very beginning. So the first part of the story is about how Community Church got started. And I owe that to a history that Doug Trotter wrote entitled A Chronicle of the Years 1958 to 1972. And of course, Doug Trotter is Trotter's father. So in 1978, a group of about 25 Unitarians who were not happy with the ministry of First Church here in town decided to leave, and they created their own Unitarian fellowship. This began a period of what I call the wandering church, which is also kind of the theme of this church. They began meeting in 83 people's houses, and soon as many as 60 people were meeting semi-permanently, this is the word that I use, semi-permanently, in Mrs. Charles Williamson's basement, in what the members fondly called the catacombs. That does not say where this house was, and it was really interesting to find out and see if it's still there. In 1961, 2 years later, the fellowship purchased a building at 2614 South Carrollton Avenue, and they named themselves the Community Church. So that's when the name started in 1961. And that building still exists. It's a big white building right now. It's like 2 random units there. And anyway, then they continued to meet there for a while. They got their first part-time minister in 1963. And then prior to that, and during the part-time ministry, the members themselves took care of the Sunday services. And that sounds familiar too, doesn't it? We still do that, and we did that for an entire year recently, almost. So in 1968, the West Bank Fellowship was formed, and that also was made up of former First Church members. And they merged with the Community Church. And prior to merging with Community Church, they too had wandered around meeting in members' homes. But then they had this nice place to worship on South Carrollton. In 1969, one of the members, Mrs. Catherine Harrison Young, died, and she left a bequest of $70,000 for the church, which, in those days was really a lot of money. Still a lot of money. Anyway, this amount allowed the congregation to buy this property right here on Liberty that we're standing on, and which was bought in 1971. And interestingly to know now that the neighbors were quite hostile to the idea of a church being formed, especially a weird one. And we didn't, or the members then were not sure what to do, but anyway, they did buy the land and decided to build. And but due to the architect, George Leaf, advised that they don't have any windows. And so the original building had no windows. So they had, well, anyway, I was also mentioned, fortunately that hostility did go away fairly quickly, because they found out, we weren't that weird after all. So groundbreaking occurred in late 1972, and the building was completed in 1973. The original building was U-shaped with an open patio in the center, and it had sloping walls. I know the youth will remember that. Liz will remember that. And when you were inside, if you got too close to the side, you whacked your head. and when we were going to build a new building, the first thing people said, no sloping walls. Anyway. And coffee was just in the back of the sanctuary, just a table where coffee was set up. And it was a very small area. So, want to show a picture? I started to attend in about 1990, and there was still that open patio. But around 1991, and going forward, there was a capital campaign, and they closed in the patio, and they made a beautiful, beautiful fellowship space. And what's really interesting is that the part of the street, the wall, was all glass, and it was kind of curved, and it was glass and copper, and it was very, very beautiful, and it was an obvious reference to the fact that we were no longer afraid to have windows. And there was a pyramid on top that let in the light. And that became a place for socializing, for coffee, and all that. It was very nice. And this is the book. Can you see it?
I'm working on it.
Anyway, the pictures that I was going to show, I do have the original pictures in a folder, which if this doesn't work, you can look at them after the service. You can come up and see them. But it was a very nice ground. It had, azaleas all around the thing. So, anyway, in those days, when I first came in 1990 or so, there were no services during the summer. It just closed down. That was the last 2 weeks of June and all of July. So about 6 weeks, the church was closed down. But Barbara Kelly, who was the president about 1990, I think between 91 and 92, she thought it would be a good idea to have coffee fellowship. So every Sunday, people could come and visit and have coffee. Well, of course, as you know, those things morph and grow and expand, and little by little, we began to have services on Sunday, and they were late at it. And that's where I got my start learning how to give a sermon. So anyway, that how we became all year round church. Yeah, you see the lighting isn't very good. But anyway, you can see on that side, that was the sanctuary, on the other side was RV, and then in the back was office. So it was a good space. Don't worry about it, it's okay. Okay, August was, the ministers were still off, basically, but, well, they weren't really off. But what we had was a round robin kind of thing. So the weeks in August, they would take the ministers themselves, it was 4 ministers because they included the Baton Rouge minister. They would be clean, and they would each give a sermon. They would go to each of the different churches on, rotating Sundays in August and give their take on the theme. And it was quite amazing how different it was. And it was really a good idea. I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to do that. Because it really brought them, getting to know the other churches, at least their ministers. In 2004, we established an endowment fund. And in June 2005, we completed a major renovation of the interior.
In July.
June or July, maybe right at the end of June. We had about 70 members. We had a brand new minister, Jim Vanderweel, and we were going strong. Then August 29th, 2005 happened, and everything changed. And it always makes me sad. Anyway, I think that the seminal event in community church's history was Hurricane Katrina. The church was destroyed, as was much of Lakeview. Water reached at least 8 feet inside the church and stayed there for months. And all the church records and furnishings were lost. And I don't know if you can see the next few slides, but if we can't, that's okay.
Yeah, 1 second.
The first slide shows the church office. John Davenport, our Wisconsin, and I came on a mission to rescue some things. After the water had gone down, there was still about 2 inches of mud. It was very slippery. And I took a picture of the church office. I couldn't open the door because of the, So I just put my hand in and got a picture. It was a complete disaster. And the piano, we had a baby grand piano, maybe a grand piano. I don't remember exactly, but anyway, it had been knocked from the sanctuary through the glass sliding doors, which had got knocked down by the water, and it was upside down in the fellowship hall. And then also I have a picture there of my husband, Alfred, who's 6'1", holding his hand all the way up to show the watermark on the church building. Anyway, those pictures are there, but as I say, I have the originals, and I'm sorry that the people online can't see them. Members were scattered to the four corners, but the congregation soon started to come together. Within days, member David Wadley, along with Jim Vanderweel, helped to create an email communication system to keep the scattered membership in touch with each other, and we would have meetings held via conference call. That was before the day of Zoom. Jim had been our minister for only a year or so. And his first view of community church, when he came to view it, was by boat, because the area remained underwater for weeks. He lived close to the church, so he too lost everything in the storm. But he gathered many of our members in Baton Rouge, and so kind of created a CCUU community in Baton Rouge. And I would say he kept not only community church going, but basically he helped with both the other two churches, First Church and North Shore, especially North Shore. He would have a day off, a Sunday off every month. That was part of his contract. So his Sunday off, he would go to North Shore and do the service there. And it really helped. And I would say that Jim was involved in every aspect of community church's recovery. Somehow, Jim negotiated the rental of the offices of the Philippine consulate in the World Trade Center downtown. It was quite a place. And that became our office, our church office, and our meeting space. The consulate had taken off to Houston because of the storm, and they actually never returned. And we met there. That was our office until the fall of 2007. So after Katrina, CCUU became a wandering church again. And we conceived the idea of a church in a box. Candles and chalice and various things like that. I think some of the hymnals, whatnot. And some of our members helped to maintain that and take it from wherever we were worshiping. The first place we met was at the Jefferson Presbyterian Church in Old Jefferson on Jefferson Highway. Because one of our members, Pat Woodstein, she's now deceased, arranged for us to meet there. It had been her childhood church. We met there on Sunday afternoon, and along with members of First Church for about 6 months. Then we moved to the First Presbyterian Church in New Orleans, across the street from First Church, and that was on Fifth Avenue. And I held joint services with First Church there for a very short period, just a couple of months, I think. It was during the summer. And that was in the fall of 2006. But as soon as the church, First Church members were able to move back into their own church across the street, and so they went, and so we were back on the road again, looking for another place to gather. And so then we moved to the Lutheran Chapel near UNO on Asian Fields. That was a nice place, very nice place. We stayed there for about 6 months or maybe a little longer. These days, we're talking with Jim, trying to, the days pretty much, I just was a bird, we did this and then we did that and we did the other thing. I couldn't tell you, a lot or what days, but anyway, so these days were popular, we need to maybe get them. This is what I was talking about, doing the history of the church, and we'll get it straight. Anyway, we were at the UNO, at the chapel near UNO, for about 6 months, like I said, and then looking for another place. Then we moved to the Congregation Gates of Prayer Synagogue in Metairie, and we stayed there until the fall of 2007. By then, we had finished refurbishing the annex, and that became our home until 2010. And you ask what is the annex? It's the building next door. That was the home of New Orleans firemen, and after, of course, it was destroyed too. And so after the storm, he had moved to the North Shore, but he did have hopes to come back. But he was sort of talked out of it. I think one of the councilwomen, Patricia Carson, she was a great friend of ours, and I think she told me, everybody who stayed there was already settled. And so, due to very, very generous donation from our member, Davis Moore, we were able to buy that building. And that became our church home until we moved into this building in 2010. So the post-Katrina era was a time of really incredible energy and work and community. Volunteers came by the hundreds to New Orleans. We acquired a number of partner churches. It was kind of a unique idea. They were youth churches around the country, around the United States. It helped us financially and physically. Susan McHugh was the coordinator of that program. She's written a little history of it, which I also drew from for this talk. She coordinated the partner program. She kept them informed by newsletters of our progress, and she organized their visits because they came here and made sure that they had stuff to do and things to see and to enjoy New Orleans. When our members traveled, when we traveled, we would go to the local union church and tell our story, slides and whatnot, and people would contribute or get interested in coming down here. And Cindy Scott, she was really helpful too, because she would go around to the different youth churches and give concerts to tell a story, and that helped a lot also. During that time, in the post-Katrina era, the three youth churches worked together, and we formed two organizations, the Greater New Orleans Unitarian Universalist, GNOUU, and the Center for Ethical Living and Social Justice Renewal, called CCUU. The UUA assigned Larry Wheeler to be our advisor, consultant, counselor, etc. And each church assigned two leaders and minister if there was one. Often there wasn't one, to be part of this group. We met monthly at the Presbyterian Church and in Marilyn Malone's house. So we found out that the UUA, that's what Cynthia was referring to, they advised that none of the three churches were viable. And we realized that what they really wanted us to do was to merge into one larger, more successful congregation. But each of the churches had very different personalities, and none of us really wanted to do that. We wanted to be ourselves. And that's how GNOUU was started, because we thought, well, we will continue, we will be here, but we will help each other, and we had fundraisers and things like that. And then the other organization kind of also came out of that, and that was the Center for Ethical Living. working, I would call it the working outreach arm of the 3 union churches. And it was housed on the second floor of the first church building. It had a big meeting room, a big kitchen, it had a lot of dormitories, the bunk beds. And so people came down from union churches as volunteers, and they would have a program to figure out where they people to go, and then afterwards they would have these sort of debriefing sessions, because this was a real culture shock for many of these people. You know, they were seeing devastation, they were bored, and overseas they were meeting black people that, you know, hadn't had much experience to meet. And so they had these debriefing sessions, which eventually evolved into the anti-racism training. And when the volunteer search sort of stopped, that's what they began to emphasize, which was successful for a while. The staff would go training, or they did it at Tulane and did different things, but eventually they just could not sustain themselves financially, and it closed just before the pandemic, it closed down. So the architect of the new building was David Lee, the son of the original architect. And we had inaugurated the new building on April 10th. And we had lots of fanfare, visitors. Yeah, the Red Bay Hunters, they were Marty Biden's group, you might know about. They came in full regalia and marched up and sang, and it was wonderful. And thanks to the very generous gift of Howard Milkey, another member, we were able to install solar panels. And so we became the first solar church in New Orleans, made in Louisiana, and we're still benefiting a lot from that. So the next big challenge that CCUU faced is the one you already know about, the pandemic, and also the loss of our minister. And that's for a story for another day. And we still are held together, and we're still here, and we're still strong. I hope we get stronger. To finish up the story, I'd like to talk about some reminders that are in this building from those days. Artifacts. And artifacts, you know, they serve to bring memories to those who lived through it. And they might make a new person wonder, well, what's that? I said, there. More likely we just stop seeing them, we don't notice them anymore. And so the first one is the Tree of Life that was created by Peg Gerson, one of our very artistically talented members, beautiful fabric that sang in the foyer. And so the first thing you see when you walk in, if you look up a little bit. And it turned out that it was actually before Katrina, it was hanging in our sanctuary when the storm hit. And it turned out that a member of the Tallahassee Union Church of all things had visited New Orleans to come to our service probably in June of 2005. And when the storm hit, she sent a message to the church saying what happened to the hanging, that she worked in the Department of Fabric Restoration at the University of Florida, and they were willing to restore it. So that was the mission when Ira Woodstein and John Adler and I came here to the church to find that hanging. It was still hanging, and about half of it had been submerged, and it was very muddy and dirty. But there was no mold on it, which is amazing, right? And I think it was because there was a lot of gasoline in the water here. I mean, if you drove through Lakeview, you smell gasoline, all the cars were upside down, up the trees, and a lot of gasoline was in the water. And I think the gasoline acted as a deterrent, antibacterial. So we managed to get it down, and I took it home, cleaned it up, let it hang in my garage. It was months, and then it turned out that John Davenport was going to Florida, to Tallahassee, of all things, for a meeting. And so he took it, and they restored it, they kept it, they even hung it in their sanctuary until they were able to return it to us. Or I think, actually, the Woodsteins went and picked it up and brought it back. So it was, a really nice connection there that they did that. So have a look at it if you haven't noticed it before. The other artifact is, I call it the Tree of Generosity. It's a glass thing, and it's on this wall, right by the office. east wall. That was commissioned by Pat Bustein, and it's really a work of art, like I said. It commemorates all the people who contributed to this building, either to the furnishings or to the building itself, on each leaf. So if you look at the little leaves that are there, it's written, third handwritten, will be a couple names and what they contributed to. And it's kind of a nice history. And lastly, I want to mention the tree of life, the other tree of life, right there. That was a gift from Charlotte Padi. She had visited Sedona, Arizona, and a glass shop and seen something like this. Thought about buying it, decided not to, came home and said, oh, I really wish I had bought it. So she commissioned it, called them up and commissioned it. So when we were here, like I said, there were like 2 inches of mud. And I'm walking around and it would crunch. And I thought, oh my God, what did I step on? And it was sick. And it wasn't broken. I took it home and cleaned it all that. And I kept it in my house until we had this building. So again, I think a lot of these things are like little miracles, that things were, in concert for things to happen. A little miracle that even though it crunched, and I don't know what that crunch was, it didn't break. And there it is. So there's so much more to the story of Community Church. When I wrote this, and then went back for the talk, I keep cutting out. So we're going to do history this night. So all of the wandering showed us that the church is really the community of people that creates it. A resilient, dedicated, determined, and committed community. May it always be so. That ends. Thank you. And now for the benediction. Dennis McCarthy calls himself a gentle atheist. I don't know why. We gather to renew ourselves in one another's good company. Together, may we share the unique goodness and beauty which lie within each of us, welcoming life's challenges even as we commiserate that life must be challenging. May we bolster one another in the struggle that faces each of us, because to do this is itself a sacrament. It nurtures generosity of spirit. Each has work to do and love to give and gain. May we give and receive the gift of one another and complete our labors together. So, our postlude, our closing hymn, is hymn 1024 in your blue teal colored hymnal. When the Spirit says do, and Nick's going to belt that out, and we're going to sing it out loud, and you can dance in the aisles if you want.
So this one, each verse is a different thing on the first page at the bottom. Like first time is do, second time is sing, dance,